Sculpted grace. Expanded introduction. My friends, there is a moment in every loss where the mind wants to run. Run toward explanation. Run toward closure. Run toward comfort. Stoicism teaches us something radical in that moment. It teaches us to stand still. Because most suffering is not caused by what we lose, but by our refusal to accept what has already left. And when regret turns into addiction, it is not love that fuels it. It is resistance to reality. You see, addiction does not begin with pleasure. It begins with escape. Escape from silence. Escape from accountability. Escape from the mirror that appears when distractions stop working. People think addiction only lives in substances, habits, or impulses. But the most dangerous addiction is emotional. It forms quietly, invisibly, when someone realizes they can no longer access the calm they once took for granted. That is when the mind begins looping. That is when memory turns compulsive. That is when regret sharpens into obsession. Stoicism is not here to teach you how to be desired. It is here to teach you how to be undisturbed. Because the person who cannot be disturbed cannot be controlled. And the one who cannot be controlled becomes unforgettable not because they try, but because their presence rewired something in others that cannot be undone. What you are about to hear is not about making someone miss you. It is about understanding why your calm became the thing they could not replace, and why your silence became the lesson they could not escape. These are not surface lessons. These are not motivational slogans. These are Stoic laws of human behavior, observed across centuries. 15 lessons that explain what happens when you stop reacting, stop chasing, and stop explaining yourself to people who confused peace for predictability. By the end, you will understand why Stoics never beg for attention, never argue for worth, and never interrupt someone's regret by rescuing them from it. Now let us begin where all addiction truly starts. Lesson 1: Addiction begins where control ends. Addiction, my friends, is not about desire. It is about loss of control. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology put language to it. When someone feels in control, they feel calm. When control disappears, anxiety rises. And when anxiety has no outlet, the mind creates obsession. That obsession often disguises itself as love, nostalgia, or curiosity, but its root is fear. Fear of powerlessness. Fear of not being able to regulate oneself anymore. When they had access to you, they borrowed your stability without realizing it. Your calm became the environment their nervous system adapted to. You were the steady rhythm in their chaos, the emotional anchor they leaned on without acknowledging the weight you carried. And when that anchor disappeared, the system destabilized. The mind began searching for replacement. Checking your profile. Replaying conversations. Imagining scenarios. Not because they missed you, but because they missed how in control they felt when you were there. Marcus Aurelius warned us of this exact trap when he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Their distress is not caused by your absence. It is caused by their belief that peace existed outside themselves. And when that belief collapses, addiction steps in to numb the realization. Now here is the Stoic application for you. When you recognize that someone's fixation is rooted in control, not connection, you stop personalizing it. You stop wondering if you should reach out. You stop mistaking obsession for devotion. Instead, you hold your ground. Because the Stoic does not relieve another person's discomfort by sacrificing his own equilibrium. You allow them to feel the loss of control because that discomfort is the teacher they avoided while you were present. Lesson 2: Regret grows in the space you no longer occupy. Regret does not arrive screaming. It arrives quietly, politely, almost gently. At first, it feels like reflection. A passing thought. A late-night memory. But left unattended, it grows teeth. Stoicism teaches that the mind, when deprived of peace, will replay the past not to learn from it, but to escape the present. And that is where regret mutates into addiction. When your presence disappears, something subtle happens. The space you once filled does not remain empty. It becomes loud. Silence amplifies unresolved emotion. The moments they dismissed when they had you suddenly gain weight. The consistency they called boring becomes rare. The calm they overlooked becomes irreplaceable. Regret grows not because you were perfect, but because peace was present, and now it is not. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Their suffering now is imagined futures that no longer include your grounding energy. They imagine conversations that will never happen. Apologies that may never be spoken. Versions of themselves they could have become had they valued what they had. Regret feeds on these imagined realities, looping them endlessly, reinforcing the addiction. For you, the Stoic lesson is restraint. Do not step back into a space you were forced to leave just to quiet someone else's regret. Absence is not cruelty. It is consequence. And consequences are necessary for growth. You do not heal regret by interrupting it. You allow it to mature into wisdom or remain addiction depending on the choices they make, not you. Lesson 3: Silence is the Stoic's sharpest weapon. Silence, my friends, is misunderstood because it does not announce itself. People confuse silence with weakness because they associate power with noise. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Silence is strength refined. It is the discipline of refusing to react when reaction would betray your values. When you stop explaining, justifying, or defending yourself, something unsettling happens in the other person's mind. The narrative collapses. They expected anger, sadness, pursuit. Instead, they meet stillness. And stillness forces introspection. It removes the distraction of conflict and leaves only truth. That truth is rarely comfortable. Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit. Silence is the refusal to be complicit. It is the decision to withdraw your energy from dynamics that require your agitation to survive. And without agitation, manipulation starves. Practically, silence protects you. It allows your nervous system to reset. It restores clarity. And it quietly communicates something words never could: I do not need to engage to be whole. That message lingers far longer than any argument ever could. Silence is not empty. It is full of boundaries. Lesson 4: Withdrawal hurts more than rejection. Rejection wounds the ego. Withdrawal dismantles identity. When someone rejects you, they still acknowledge your relevance. When you withdraw, you remove yourself entirely from their emotional economy. And that absence creates panic. Stoicism teaches us that attachment forms where dependency is allowed to grow. When you consistently show up as calm, supportive, and stable, others may unconsciously outsource their regulation to you. When that source disappears, the system goes into shock. That shock is experienced as longing, fixation, or obsession, but its core is withdrawal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." The Stoic accepts withdrawal as natural. You did not disappear to punish. You disappeared to preserve yourself. And preservation is not abandonment, it is self-respect. For you, this means understanding that their pain is not proof you did something wrong. It is proof that something unhealthy was leaning on you. Let withdrawal run its course. You are not responsible for easing discomfort that was created by dependence, not love. Lesson 5: Attention is cheap, presence is rare. My friends, one of the greatest illusions in modern life is the belief that attention equals connection. Stoicism cuts through this illusion mercilessly. Attention can be given by anyone, at any time, with little cost. A glance, a message, a compliment. But presence, that deep, grounding, stabilizing energy that allows another person to breathe easier, is rare. Presence requires self-mastery. It requires patience. It requires emotional regulation. And that is why, when it disappears, attention cannot replace it. When they lost you, they didn't lose stimulation. They lost regulation. That's why they can surround themselves with people and still feel restless. That's why conversations feel shallow, laughter feels forced, and validation fades quickly. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." They are not starving for people. They are starving for the calm your presence provided, the way your energy slowed their racing mind without effort or performance. For you, the Stoic application is clarity. Do not confuse being wanted with being valued. Do not confuse attention with attachment. You are not meant to compete in a marketplace of noise. Your strength lies in depth, not display. The Stoic does not raise his voice to be noticed. He waits, knowing that those who recognize presence always do so after drowning in distraction. Lesson 6: Memory is stronger than desire. Desire burns fast. Memory burns deep. Stoicism teaches us that the nervous system remembers peace far longer than excitement. Chaos creates intensity, but calm creates imprint. When someone has experienced steadiness, real steadiness, it becomes the reference point against which all future experiences are measured, whether consciously or not. This is why memories return uninvited. A tone of voice. A quiet moment. A feeling of being understood without explanation. These memories surface not because they want to romanticize the past, but because the body remembers safety. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Their thoughts now are colored by comparison, by the subtle realization that what they once dismissed cannot be recreated through force or novelty. Your role here is detachment without bitterness. You do not remind them of what was. You let memory do that work. Memory is far more persuasive than argument. And when you stay calm, grounded, and unavailable to nostalgia, you ensure that memory remains a teacher rather than a door back into chaos. Lesson 7. Control is an illusion that collapses under detachment. Control thrives on reaction. This is one of the most brutal truths Stoicism reveals. As long as someone can provoke emotion, explanation, or reassurance from you, they feel powerful. The moment you detach, truly detach, that power evaporates. Not gradually. Instantly. At first, they test. A message. A post. A subtle provocation. They are not seeking connection, they are checking whether the strings still work. But when nothing moves, when your energy remains steady and unresponsive, something unsettling happens. The illusion of control collapses. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In detachment, you reclaim mastery. In silence, you reveal theirs was borrowed. Practically, this means resisting the urge to clarify, correct, or defend yourself. Detachment is not emotional numbness. It is strategic self-respect. You step out of the arena where ego demands performance. And without an audience, manipulation has no stage. Lesson 8. Growth without permission is the ultimate severance. Nothing destabilizes regret more than witnessing growth it did not authorize. Stoicism does not preach improvement as revenge, but growth has consequences for those who expected you to remain accessible, stagnant, or diminished. When you evolve quietly, without announcement, you disrupt the narrative they relied on to soothe themselves. They expected you to pause where they left you. To ache. To wait. To remain available. Instead, they see discipline, composure, and expansion. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." The friction you endured refined you. And refinement creates distance that cannot be crossed casually. Your Stoic responsibility is humility paired with firmness. You do not grow to be seen. You grow because stagnation is suffering. And when others interpret your evolution as coldness, you let them. Growth does not owe comfort to those who underestimated it. Lesson 9. Safety is felt only after it is lost. Excitement excites the senses. Safety regulates the soul. Stoicism understands that peace is not passive, it is foundational. When someone loses safety, they often mislabel the ache as boredom or restlessness, not realizing it is the nervous system mourning stability. Now, every interaction feels uncertain. Every bond feels temporary. They laugh, but they don't exhale. They connect, but they don't settle. Marcus Aurelius observed, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." You offered harmony. And now, disharmony follows them everywhere, not because the world changed, but because their internal reference point is gone. For you, this is the lesson of boundaries. Safety is sacred. It is not something you offer endlessly to someone who refuses to protect it. You have learned to be your own shelter. And that self-generated safety makes you immovable. Lesson 10, you are not their absence, you are their standard. People do not miss what was superficial. They miss what redefined them. Stoicism teaches that once the mind experiences order, it cannot unexperience it. You became a standard not through perfection, but through consistency. Through calm reactions. Through emotional restraint. Through presence. Now, every connection they form is unconsciously compared. Not to you as a person, but to the feeling of equilibrium you embodied. Seneca warned, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. They chase variety now, but depth eludes them. And depth, once known, is not optional, it is required. Lesson 11, detachment is not coldness, it is self-respect. Detachment is often misread as indifference. Stoicism rejects this misunderstanding. Detachment is care with boundaries. It is choosing not to bleed for those who will not stop cutting. When you detach, you are not erasing love, you are refusing to abandon yourself. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You chose peace. Detachment followed naturally. Not as punishment, but as alignment. Practically, this means you do not explain your distance. You do not justify your absence. You allow others to interpret your calm however they need to. Your responsibility is not to manage their feelings, it is to manage your integrity. Lesson 12, obsession is not proof of love. Love frees. Obsession tightens. Stoicism is clear, what enslaves is not affection, it is attachment without self-mastery. Their fixation is not romantic. It is regulatory. They are trying to soothe a system that no longer knows how to be calm on its own. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." They handed that power away when they depended on you for balance. And now, without you, the mind scrambles. Your Stoic response is compassion without involvement. You can understand without returning. You can empathize without reattaching. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Lesson 13, you do not owe closure to those who broke peace. Closure is not a conversation. It is a decision. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from within, not from agreement. When someone seeks closure from you, they are often seeking relief, not resolution. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is self-sufficient." You closed the chapter by choosing calm. You do not reopen it to explain why it ended. Practically, this means resisting the temptation to give one last explanation. Explanations reopen wounds. Silence seals them. Lesson 14, calm is not passive, it is dominant. The calm person controls the emotional climate without effort. Stoicism does not equate dominance with aggression. True dominance is composure under pressure. It is steadiness when chaos demands reaction. When you remain calm, others adjust. They project. They interpret. They spiral. You remain unmoved. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break." That cliff does not fight the waves. It outlasts them. Lesson 15, peace makes you irreplaceable. You were not unforgettable because you tried to be. You were unforgettable because peace is rare. Stoicism teaches that what is rare becomes valuable only after it is gone. They may find others. They may laugh again. But they will always recognize the absence of ease. And ease, once lost, becomes legendary. So remember this, my friends. You are not their lesson. You are the consequence of ignoring wisdom. Write it now, and mean it. I choose calm. I choose mastery. I choose peace. Because peace is not boring. Peace is sovereign. Sculpted grace. After the lessons, the Stoic integration. My friends, learning Stoic lessons is not the same as living them. Knowledge can be admired. Wisdom must be embodied. And embodiment is where most people fail, not because they are weak, but because they underestimate how seductive old patterns can be when silence stretches long and memory grows loud. Stoicism never promised comfort. It promised clarity. And clarity often feels lonely at first. When you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, when you stop chasing reassurance, the world grows quieter. That quiet can feel like emptiness if you are not prepared for it. But emptiness is not absence. It is space. Space to rebuild identity on something stronger than attachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That retreat does not appear instantly. It is built choice by choice, reaction by reaction withheld. What you are experiencing now is not loss. It is detox. And detox always feels worse before it feels clean. The hidden phase, when the mind tries to betray you. There will be a phase no one talks about. A phase where the pain no longer comes from them, but from your own mind. This is when Stoicism becomes essential. The mind will whisper, "What if I was too harsh? What if silence was a mistake? What if I misunderstood everything?" This is not intuition. This is withdrawal. The brain is accustomed to emotional engagement, even when it was unhealthy. When that stimulation is removed, the mind searches for reasons to restore it. Stoicism teaches us not to trust every thought simply because it is loud. Epictetus warned, "Don't believe everything you think." Thoughts are impressions, not commands. In this phase, discipline matters more than emotion. You return to principle, not nostalgia. You remind yourself why silence was chosen. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to protect peace. This is where many people relapse, breaking silence not out of love, but out of discomfort with their own growth. Practical Stoic discipline, what you do instead of reaching out. Stoicism is not passive endurance. It is active redirection. When the urge to check, reach out, or replay arises, you do not suppress it, you replace it. You move the body. You regulate the breath. You narrow attention to what is within control. Marcus Aurelius practiced negative visualization not to suffer, but to detach. When you feel pulled backward, remind yourself, if this never changes, can I still live well? If the answer is yes, you are free. Build routines that do not include them. Morning silence. Physical training. Writing. Reading. Long walks without headphones. These practices are not distractions. They are retraining the nervous system to find stability internally rather than externally. Peace must be practiced until it becomes default. When they eventually reach out. Make no mistake, my friends, when regret matures, it often seeks relief. Relief does not always come as apology. Sometimes it comes as curiosity. Sometimes as nostalgia. Sometimes as kindness that feels strangely out of season. Stoicism prepares you for this moment not with scripts, but with orientation. You ask yourself one question only. Does responding cost me peace? If it does, the answer is already no. Seneca said, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." Power here is not cruelty. It is clarity. You are not obligated to reopen doors simply because someone knocks more softly this time. Growth does not require confrontation. Sometimes the most stoic response is respectful distance maintained without explanation. The final shift, from regret to reverence. There comes a moment quiet, almost imperceptible, when their regret changes tone. It is no longer frantic. No longer desperate. It becomes reflective. Heavy. Respectful. This is when they stop trying to reclaim you and start revering what you represented. Stoicism teaches us that reverence is the final form of loss. It is acceptance without access. They no longer try to control the outcome. They simply carry the lesson. And this is important. You do not need to witness this for it to be real. Peace does not need an audience. Closure does not need confirmation. What you become? You become someone who does not chase explanation, does not argue for worth, does not fear being misunderstood, does not abandon peace to soothe others. You move slower, speak less, choose carefully. You are no longer reactive, you are deliberate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This is the end of the cycle. Not because someone else changed but because you did. Final words from Sculpted Grace. My friends, remember this above all. You were not forgotten. You were felt too deeply to be replaced. You were not a phase. You were a foundation they did not know how to maintain. And now, you are no longer available to chaos, only to peace. Write it one final time, not for them, but for yourself. I choose calm. I choose discipline. I choose mastery. Because when you master yourself, no one ever truly leaves you behind. Sculpted Grace.